what episode or scene was so fulfilling for you guys as actors that you would love to go back and do it again if you could?
We're so lucky that we have so many.
Ever wondered what it really took to keep The Big Bang Theory running smoothly for 12 seasons? Beyond the laughter and quirky science talk, the cast had to follow some seriously strict and downright bizarre rules that most fans never saw coming. From wardrobe mandates to unexpected behind-the-scenes traditions, the actors lived under a set of conditions that were anything but ordinary. One rule even determined whether a character could ever return to the show: no second chances. Think you know the cast? Think again. These weren't just guidelines. They were non-negotiable contracts that shaped everything you saw on screen. Get ready to uncover the odd, the rigid, and the surprisingly clever rules that kept this iconic sitcom ticking. 20. Amy and Bernadette's Salary Gap. When Melissa Roch, Bernadette, and Mayim Bialik, Amy, were first introduced to The Big Bang Theory, their roles were intended as supporting parts, and their contracts reflected that status. As a result, the two actresses were initially paid significantly less than the original main cast. While Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, and Kaylee Cuoco were earning up to $1 million per episode at the peak of the show's success, Rauch and Bialik were reportedly making around $175,000 per episode, less than a fifth of what their co-stars received. Despite their growing popularity and screen time, they remained financially behind, even after becoming series regulars in Season 4. The pay gap became a point of dispute eventually, with Bialik and Rauch pushing for higher salaries. Despite initial resistance by the studio, the threat of these beloved characters walking away, along with increasing public awareness of issues of wage disparity, prompted a reopening of negotiations. Thanks to the support of their co-stars, both ladies managed to wrangle pay close to $500,000 per episode. While it was not on par with the top earners, the bump was substantial and solidified their importance in the ongoing success of the show. Their journey brought into perspective the struggles of breaking into an established cast and the necessity for strong advocacy for fair pay in long-running ensemble series. But while paychecks were a point of tension behind the scenes, this next rule proves even wardrobe came with strict boundaries. 19. The dressing rule. One of the strictest rules enforced on the Big Bang Theory set was the unwavering consistency of each character's wardrobe, known as the dressing rule. From the very beginning, each main character was styled in a distinctive outfit that visually reinforced their personality traits. Sheldon's layered superhero tees and long sleeves, Leonard's hoodie underjacket combo, and Raj's sweater vests and cargo pants, for example. These signature looks became a visual shorthand for the audience, instantly communicating who each character was, even before they spoke. The show's creators believed that maintaining a consistent wardrobe would eliminate distractions, allowing both the cast and the audience to focus on the dialogue and character dynamics rather than changes in appearance. These style rules were so stringent that they went largely unaltered for over 12 seasons. And even Penny, who started out wearing some bright, youthful ensembles that paralleled her bubbly character, was handicapped wardrobe-wise until the later seasons when she was allowed more freedom in fashion expression. Raj stands almost lone in exception, his fashion evolving in alignment with the character's development. The producers argued this rigidity in the wardrobe was a means to streamline production and keep actors in character. There was a minor but extremely meaningful reference to this rule in the series finale. Penny wore the same outfit that she wore during the pilot, giving the fans an emotional wink back to the birth of the show. 18. Without the top three, the show ends. From its inception, The Big Bang Theory was built around the central trio of Sheldon Cooper, Leonard Hofstadter, and Penny, portrayed by Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, and Kaylee Cuoco, respectively. These three characters were the foundation of the series, and the storyline revolved almost entirely around their interactions, conflicts, and growth. The producers made it clear early on that the show's success hinged on this core dynamic, so much so that if any one of the top three actors chose to leave, the entire series would come to an end. Unlike ensemble shows where characters can be swapped or written off, The Big Bang Theory was considered creatively inseparable from its top three leads. In the end, this rule sealed the show's fate. After 12 years, Jim Parsons declared that he would not be returning for the 13th season, thereby instantly bringing the show to its conclusion. Parsons did express some optimism that the series could go on without him, but the producers and cast felt that it simply could not. Parsons' rendition of Sheldon had become too iconic to replace, and apart from that, the chemistry between the three was reckoned as a great loss. The foundational rule had been respected. Without Sheldon, Leonard, or Penny, simply, there was no Big Bang Theory. 17th, cast had to learn science jargon. One of the most unique challenges faced by the cast of The Big Bang Theory was mastering the complex scientific jargon that defined much of the show's humor and dialogue. Although most of the actors did not have scientific backgrounds, they were required to convincingly portray characters who were highly intelligent physicists, engineers, and scientists. This meant learning how to pronounce and deliver lengthy technical lines involving theories, formulas, and scientific principles, often with little to no actual understanding of what the words meant. To maintain authenticity, the show's producers consulted real scientists and even employed a science advisor to ensure the dialogue was accurate and believable. Somewhat steep in terms of growth curve, the cast embraced the challenge, at times going into intense rehearsals to ensure the lines scientifically would flow with such ease. Jim Parsons was especially known within and outside the industry for coursing through these physics-laden monologues, although he would say in interviews that most of the time he didn't know what he was saying. This particular requirement proved to be a tribute to the professionalism and craft of the actors. If you permit me, I would say that it added an extra layer of acceptance and beauty to the series because the actors' portrayal as nearly functioning experts on their field gave the viewer the chance to buy into the life of socially awkward geniuses, without necessarily getting all the scientific references. 16. The guys get shaved. A lesser-known but strictly enforced rule on the set of The Big Bang Theory was that the male actors had to remain clean-shaven throughout the filming of the series. While off-camera, actors like Johnny Galecki, Jim Parsons, and Kunal Nair often grew facial hair during breaks between seasons. They were required to shave it all off once production resumed. This guideline was rooted in maintaining the consistent, boyish, and slightly awkward appearance of their characters, which was central to the show's tone and comedic identity. Producers believed that facial hair would alter the characters' perceived personalities. Sheldon, for example, would lose his hyper-rational, asexual image if paired with a rugged beard. The males were decided to be kept clean-shaven so that the visual continuity of the show would remain intact. Since the characters were basically meant to embody the stereotypical geek culture, almost socially inept but intellectually brilliant, the producers felt that facial hair might have unintentionally conveyed confidence or maturity, which did not fit the characters' arcs. Very few exceptions were made for certain episodes or dream sequences, usually prohibiting the actors from appearing in stubble or beards. Those were small details but went a long way toward cementing the characters' identity and keeping their looks consistent in the eyes of viewers over an incredible span of 12 seasons. 15. Performing in front of a live audience. One of the defining features of The Big Bang Theory was its commitment to filming in front of a live studio audience, a tradition that added a unique layer of energy and authenticity to each episode. This format not only preserved the classic feel of multi-camera sitcoms, but also gave the cast immediate feedback through real-time laughter and reactions. The presence of a live audience required the actors to treat each take almost like a stage performance, delivering lines with precise timing, responding to audience cues, and occasionally pausing for laughter before continuing. This setup challenged the cast to be sharp and consistent, as retakes in front of an audience meant maintaining comedic momentum without breaking character. Having a live audience present for filming certainly riddled with an electric aura on set that crackled with life. Over the years, a series of traditions promoted by the cast and crew helped to sustain the energy. Flash dances during commercial breaks, and encore performances after episodes, both of which created more bonding opportunities between the audience and performers. However, certain scenes, particularly those involving special effects or non-studio location shots, unable to be done live. Still, most episodes did retain this performance style. It was an audience made up of real, specially invited people who truly laughed at the jokes and quips heard on the show, thereby reinforcing the entertainment value of the show, extra life giving to the scene, and an unexpected spontaneity. 14th, flash dances and encores. A fun and unexpected tradition on the set of The Big Bang Theory was the cast's spontaneous flash dances and lively encores, which became a beloved part of the live studio audience experience. During breaks in filming or in between scenes, the cast would occasionally break into choreographed or improvised dance routines, turning the soundstage into a mini dance party. These surprise performances were never scripted or part of the show itself, but served to keep the energy high and the audience engaged. It became something fans in the studio looked forward to just as much as watching the actual episode unfold. In addition to the impromptu dances, there was also another tradition that observed the finale of the shooting. An encore performance, so to speak. Rather than take their bows or wave goodbye to the audience, the cast would team up, sometimes slipping into goofy moods, for one last dance send-off. This was an opportunity for the actors to drop their characters and come out into full playfulness together, which further cemented the kinship between cast and fans. Eventually, these rituals evolved into a necessary cog of the Big Bang Theory filming experiences, infusing further energy and spirit into the show and embedding into the memory of anyone lucky enough to attend a taping, some experiences not recorded by the cameras. 13. The top three earned more. For much of the Big Bang Theory's run, a notable pay gap existed between the top three stars, Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, and Kaylee Cuoco, and the rest of the cast. As the original leads around whom the show was built, these three actors quickly became the face of the series, with their characters, Sheldon, Leonard, and Penny, driving the main plot lines and receiving the most screen time. As a result, by the time the show hit its peak, Parsons, Galecki, and Cuoco were each earning a staggering $1 million per episode. Their salaries reflected not only their status within the storyline, but also their draw for audiences and advertisers, making them the most financially rewarded cast members on the series. The income gap was rife with controversy. Howard and Raj began to appear more in the series and began to very much contribute to the show's success. Accordingly, the imbalance became increasingly difficult to justify. Still, producers defended the pay discrepancy by saying that the other three, higher-paid actors were integral to creating and carrying the show. While the tiered pay system may have created tension off-camera, it highlighted a simple reality of a long-running TV show. Salaries are often pegged to how central characters are perceived to be and their value to the show as a brand. Negotiations would eventually bring about relative equity in the earnings of the cast, but for years, Parsons, Galecki, and Cuoco sat at the apex of the show's pay scale. 12. The top 5 earned equally after season 10. By the time The Big Bang Theory reached its 11th season, the dynamics among the cast had evolved both on-screen and behind the scenes. Simon Helberg, Howard, and Kunal Nayyar, Raj, who had initially been supporting characters, had grown into vital parts of the storyline with their own fully developed arcs and loyal fan followings. Recognizing their increased importance to the show's success, both actors successfully negotiated pay raises that brought them into the top salary tier alongside Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, and Kaylee Cuoco. From season 11 onward, the top 5 stars each earned $900,000 per episode, slightly less than the previous $1 million, but now on equal footing. The further glories for the salary adjustment lay with the original top 3, who had agreed upon each taking a $100,000 pay cut per episode as a balancing stance against the compensation. In an unusual unity amongst the competitive workplace of television, it came to be recognized that the show had since become an ensemble effort. This pay equity bolstered the collaborative spirit, which shared the momentum through to the final seasons, with 5 principal characters now driving the plot and sharing the limelight. It also served as an essential turning point in acknowledging the larger impacts that made The Big Bang Theory an everlasting success. 11. The top 3 always get top billing. Throughout the 12-season run of The Big Bang Theory, Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, and Kaylee Cuoco, who played Sheldon, Leonard, and Penny, were consistently given top billing, both in the show's opening credits and in all promotional materials. Their characters formed the heart of the series, and from the pilot episode onward, the narrative was largely built around their interactions, conflicts, and personal development. Whether it was Sheldon's quirky genius, Leonard's romantic struggles, or Penny's journey from aspiring actress to pharmaceutical rep, these 3 drove the majority of the plot lines. As such, their names always appeared first in cast lists, poster layouts, and DVD packaging, reinforcing their elevated status within the show's hierarchy. Even as the show evolved and other characters like Howard, Raj, Amy, and Bernadette became more integrated into the proceedings, the Big 3 retained their bullseye presence. They garnered more screen time with stories that anchored the series. Most secondary characters' plots would often tie into these 3. This structure was not only about narrative focus. The Big 3 went on the top of the bill because of contractual importance and marketability. The 3, Parsons, Galecki, and Cuoco, being the faces of the show as well as the major emotional and comedic drivers, indicated that their being given the top billing was in recognition of how much they contributed to turning The Big Bang Theory into a cultural phenomenon. While the top 3 led on screen, this next rule ensured they shined off-screen too. 10th actors had to promote the show. As part of their contracts, the cast of The Big Bang Theory was obligated to participate in promotional appearances to support the show's success. This included interviews on major talk shows, red carpet events, press tours, and fan conventions. These appearances were not optional. Promotion was a critical part of the marketing strategy to keep the show visible, attract new viewers, and maintain fan engagement. Whether it was Jim Parsons appearing on The Tonight Show, Kaylee Cuoco visiting Ellen, or the entire cast doing press junkets, each promotional outing served the larger purpose of reinforcing the show's presence in the public eye and boosting its ratings. These promotions not only served to increase exposure, but also showed fans a different side of the actors off-script, candid and personal. While the on-screen persona was carefully cultivated, talk shows and interviews gave the fans a tiny glimpse of the real humans behind those characters and, hence, created highly loyal fans. These appearances also proved that the cast members bonded and had chemistry truly, all of which helped cement the show's brand. The actors had to keep the momentum going on media platforms even when there was an off-season or during the shooting pauses, letting everyone know that their work went beyond what was filmed in front of the camera. 9. Cast cannot openly discuss their love life. One of the lesser-known but strictly enforced rules behind the scenes of The Big Bang Theory was that cast members were prohibited from openly discussing their personal relationships. This clause was included in their contracts to help maintain a professional atmosphere on set and to avoid any distractions or drama that could interfere with production. Producers believed that publicizing romantic relationships, especially between cast members, could lead to complications, both personally and professionally. The goal was to keep the focus on the show and its characters rather than the actors' private lives, ensuring that real-life issues wouldn't overshadow the fictional dynamics audiences had come to love. Take the classic example of Galecki and Cuoco's hush-hush relationship from 1999 to 2000. The pair portrayed an on-screen couple of Leonard and Penny. The two secretly dated for nearly 2 years during the early seasons of the show. Keeping the romance a secret was in line with studio expectations, and it was only after their destiny to stay apart that the two admitted the relationship had ever occurred. In other words, by avoiding public comments surrounding their private lives, the actors preserved their on-screen chemistry with integrity and kept away from potentially invasive press coverage that could have jeopardized the show's success. 8. Actors had to commit or get written out. On The Big Bang Theory, commitment to the series was non-negotiable. Cast members who chose to leave the show were written out permanently, with no guarantee of return. Unlike other long-running shows where characters could exit and reappear later, the producers of The Big Bang Theory maintained a firm policy. If an actor walked away, their storyline would be closed for good. This rule created a strong sense of stability and accountability within the cast. Everyone knew that if they exited, whether due to personal reasons or outside opportunities, there would be no revolving door waiting for them. This policy helped preserve the narrative continuity of the show and ensured that character development stayed on a focused path without sudden, inconsistent reappearances. In the relatively clear example of the policy at work, Kate Micucci, who portrayed Lucy, the love of Raj's life, exited the show. As she left for another opportunity, Lucy's character was quickly and conclusively written off. There was no invitation to return, even when the other show turned out to not last. The message was clear. The rest of the cast must depend on themselves. Second thoughts will cost them. That may have felt cruel, but gave the show a consistency in tone and character development which lasted for the entire duration of the 12 seasons, giving fans the sense that they were watching a show with a very reliable tone and narrative cohesion, something often not afforded to other shows with revolving casts. 7. Eating on camera. On The Big Bang Theory, food was a constant presence. Whether the characters were gathered around takeout boxes in Sheldon and Leonard's apartment or eating at the Cheesecake Factory. However, despite the numerous meal scenes, the actors were generally not allowed to actually eat the food on camera. Instead, they had to master the art of pretending to eat, pushing food around their plates, mimicking chewing, and timing their lines to appear natural without actually consuming anything. This rule was put in place to prevent continuity issues and to avoid the discomfort or bloating that could come from eating take after take during long filming sessions. That stated, there were a few exceptions to this rule. If a joke or scene required a character to be fully crunching with food or to emphasize a punchline by way of eating, the actors did actually bite. These moments were well planned and kept to a minimum to allow production comfort and control. Most of what was probably seen by the viewers was acting alone. Making it look like one is enjoying the food without actually doing so, is a very subtle skill needed in sitcom performance, and this was done flawlessly by the cast of The Big Bang Theory. 6. Simon and Kunal almost left. During the height of The Big Bang Theory's popularity, actors Simon Helberg, Howard, and Kunal Nayyar, Raj, nearly walked away from the show due to pay inequality. As the original top three, Jim Parsons, Johnny Galecki, and Kaylee Cuoco, were earning $1 million per episode. Helberg and Nayyar, despite becoming essential to the series, were earning significantly less. Frustrated by the discrepancy, both actors entered into tense negotiations with the studio, demanding salaries that better reflected their growing contributions to the show. Their characters had evolved from comic relief to key players with rich storylines, and the two believed their pay should reflect that. The situation had apparently gotten so bad that the producers began researching how to write the two characters out, with plans for continuing without them. However, Simon and Kunal eventually reached an agreement with the studio to remain with the series for the balance of its run. Their circumstances not only highlighted the challenges of ensemble cast dynamics in long-running shows, but also set the stage for a fairer compensation structure in the show's final season. They basically fought for leadership by demanding equal pay and paved the way for a more equitable balance of cast salaries when the show would later place them among the top 5 billing. 5. The original plot is off limits. Before The Big Bang Theory became a global hit, there was an original pilot episode that looked vastly different from the version fans came to know and love. This early attempt featured different characters, a drastically altered tone, and a darker version of Penny, then named Katie, who was more abrasive and cynical. The reception from test audiences was overwhelmingly negative, prompting CBS and the show's creators to overhaul the concept entirely. They rewrote character dynamics, recast key roles, and introduced the lighter, nerd-centric humor that ultimately defined the series. Despite its place in the show's history, the original pilot remains a sensitive subject that cast and crew are contractually discouraged from discussing publicly. For this strict silence surrounding the original pilot, it has mostly to do with shame, maybe to protect the brand and legacy of the show as it was eventually aired. Producers have continually mentioned that analyzing the failed version openly or returning to it could confuse the fans. The confusing nature would put a dent in the smooth spirit of the final product in their eyes. However, clips and summaries of the original pilot grace the web. The cast is expected to abstain from referencing the original pilot during interviews or appearances. Even the strictness enforcing the studio wants to see the triumphant reboot version being front and center, instead of a failure that almost consigned one of TV's most successful sitcoms to the dustbin. 4. Kevin Susman only got credited when featured. Although Kevin Susman played the recurring and eventually regular character of Stuart Bloom on The Big Bang Theory, his name was only credited in the episodes where he actually appeared. Unlike the top-billed cast members whose names ran in the opening credits regardless of their presence in a given episode, Susman's inclusion in the credits was conditional. This reflected his status as a secondary character, important and well-liked, but not central to the show's core narrative. Even after Stuart became a more integrated part of the friend group and appeared more frequently, this rule remained in place, emphasizing the show's rigid hierarchy when it came to cast billing. This is a very typical credit arrangement in television. What's interesting is that Susman was retained on the show for so long. Despite his status as a fan favorite, not netting a consistent credit was a subtle way of differentiating him from the main cast, emphasizing The Big Bang Theory's pay disparity and visibility disparity between its leads and supporting cast. Still, Susman was able to create quite a following for himself, as the lovable, awkward comic book store owner, showing one doesn't need a high billing to leave a lasting imprint on viewers. 3. The order on the posters. The promotional posters for The Big Bang Theory were more than just marketing tools. They were a direct reflection of the show's internal cast hierarchy. Jim Parsons, Sheldon, Johnny Galecki, Leonard, and Kaylee Cuoco, Penny, were always placed front and center, emphasizing their positions as the core trio around whom the entire show revolved. This consistent visual placement reinforced their top-tier status, not just in the storyline, but also in terms of screen time, salary, and public recognition. Whether in official posters, DVD covers, or press materials, their prominence was unmistakable, sending a clear message about who the true leads were. Supporting cast members such as Simon Helberg, Howard, Kunal Nair, Raj, Mayim Bialik, Amy, and Melissa Rauch, Bernadette, appeared mainly in the background, even as plot-wise their characters became more important. Usually, their placement followed a sort of hierarchical order. Helberg and Nair would be just behind top 3, and Bialik and Rauch would be a bit away from them. This rigid arrangement was noticed and criticized by fans, but the show's producers kept it as a visual representation of the original show design and brand. It constantly reminded the audience that, no matter the evolution of the ensemble, The Big Bang Theory was always centered around those 3 main leads. 2. Some characters were written out. On The Big Bang Theory, character presence was closely tied to narrative necessity, and those deemed non-essential were often written out when their storylines reached a natural or creative dead end. While the show maintained a strong core cast, several supporting characters were introduced only to quietly disappear later. If the writers no longer saw a meaningful direction for a character, they didn't hesitate to phase them out, no matter how well they were received by fans. This approach allowed the show to stay focused and avoid bloated subplots, but it also meant that actors had to be aware that their roles could end abruptly. Examples would be characters such as Lucy, Raj's socially anxious girlfriend, portrayed by Kate Micucci, or Leslie Winkle, played by Sarah Gilbert. Both seemed promising candidates early on to become recurring characters. However, when their storylines began to stagnate or no longer harmonized with the ever-changing dynamics of the main cast, they were quietly ushered out. Often these exits were left unexplained in the storyline, giving writers a freer hand that they could direct toward other things without being weighed down with farewell ceremonies. While some characters faded out, those who stayed faced a tougher challenge. And this is the final rule on our list. First, learning to navigate the set. Filming The Big Bang Theory required more than just memorizing lines. Actors also had to master the layout of the show's intricate set. Because the series was shot on a soundstage with multiple interconnected rooms, including Leonard and Sheldon's apartment, Penny's place, stairwells, and other recurring locations, the cast needed to move seamlessly between spaces during scenes. This required a detailed understanding of how each part of the set connected off-camera, even though the audience typically only saw one room at a time. For the sake of timing, blocking, and camera angles, knowing exactly where to enter and exit and which direction to face was essential to keeping each scene smooth and believable. Navigating the set was second nature to the cast, with plenty of practice before the series was halfway through. With a very fast schedule and the pressure of performing in front of witnesses, errors were not permitted. Performing arts had to be right on time, whether it meant knocking on the correct door, walking down the right hallway, or hitting the mark in a group scene. There was, therefore, an unspoken polish, which the audience unconsciously senses, but greatly contributes to selling the illusion of a world lived in. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed diving into the behind-the-scenes secrets of The Big Bang Theory, Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment with your favorite rule, and subscribe for more awesome TV insights. And hey, don't go anywhere. Click on the next video on your screen to keep the binge going. See you there.